All right, we're right here at 10 o'clock, so I want to go ahead and start because we only have 3 sessions of an hour and 15 minutes apiece. And I hope you forgive me for bringing you all in person. This is more for me, so I don't have to record anything. I prefer to meet you guys in person anyways. And on top of that, I think that you get about double the value of having an in-person class. Now, again, we're only going to have 3 sessions. It's October 2nd, November 4th. If you want to go ahead and write that down, or if you didn't see the announcement yesterday, right? Anybody having trouble viewing the announcements? Cool. So, again, I only have an hour and 15 minutes. I hate it in terms of this class is, well, I like it, and it's a double-edged sword, right? This class is 145 students. I've got about 80 of you here, which is pretty cool. Kind of hard, and for example, I'd love to have you all, individually get up, introduce yourselves, but it's hard, right? With 80 people, I'll blow through the entire hour and 15 minutes. And so instead what I want to do, and I promise I won't talk too much about the chapters, but I'd like to give you just a little bit of extra you can take away once you graduate, or even, technically, with advancements with your phone, right, with cell phones, there's actually a lot of it that you can take advantage of today, right? So let me not get too far off on that. Again, my name is Navi Pooney, right? Navpreet Pooney. Everybody calls me Navi. I don't even think I've ever heard my mom call me Navpreet. Email and text, right? If you need to reach me, one of these two. If you call that number, I may or may not answer, but if you text it, you'll always get a response. Let me just really quick, and again, I don't want to go over too much of stuff that you already have, and so I just really want to show you real fast. Right there at the top is a little bit about me if you want to know. Again, my name is Navi. I worked in retail for 20-ish years. I've been teaching business for 8 years. At Barton College for 8 years, teaching here, I think 2 or 3 years. I used to be at Campbell University in Buies Creek for 4 or 5 years, and I used to do the community college for, 3 years, 4 years, something of the nature. I also worked in corporate, so I spent time with BB&T doing cybersecurity before they merged with SunTrust, right? Before they had the merger with SunTrust and became Truist Financial or whatever they're called now. Thank God I got out before then, right? My sister, she works at Garmin, so she works a regular 9 to 5, and I feel for her all the time. This is one of the best professions in the world, right? Because it's a pretty good work-life balance. I guess that's why they have me in front of you all, right? Talking and teaching. I have my master's in international business, but I don't have my doctorate or PhD yet because I'm a little bit too wired on making money rather than spending it, right? And so I think a lot of the reason why I'm here is because of experience. So I do not believe in making you all buy a textbook if you don't need to. So I have the PDF version up there. You won't need it really because everything else should be in the PowerPoints. Between the PowerPoints and the book. But for the most part, I think the PowerPoint and the internet, right? I will never be the one to have you take a test and not have access to each other, your cell phones, the internet, whatever it may be, because that's not realistic, right? It'll be realistic when you go out and do a standardized test like the GMAT or, all these other types of standardized tests. But as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to making money in the real world, you actually, and that's what we're here, right? We're in a fundamentals of management class. What is management, right? Management. Right? It is the effective and efficient, if only I could write as fast as I can think, right? Effective and efficient allocation of resources. Now, really, I want you to think about this because, and I don't care, I've been doing it 8 years now, so I'm probably a lot more used to sharing my opinion than I used to be. Back in the day, I tried my best to just keep it straight facts, but now I tell a little bit more about how I feel. Everything revolves around business, right? I don't care if you're a doctor. I don't care if you're a psychologist. I don't care if you're working construction. I don't care, actually, because the inflow and the outflow of money, right, whether it's a nonprofit, a for-profit, a government, an educational institution, there is inflows and outflows of money. Therefore, in some way, sense, or form, it's a business, right? And now business is this big umbrella word, right? Business. And underneath it, you have all these other things, right? Management and marketing and operations and finance and accounting. And they are not to be thought of as individual components. They're actually to be thought of as, right, working parts of this one big moving umbrella, or if you think about, staying with the umbrella, these little parts that hold the umbrella in place. So management, it's effective. It works, right? Efficient, it's lean. Also means void of waste. Allocation of resources. There's two types of management that I like to talk about in my class because I find them equally as important. A lot of times you'll go out there, and you probably had an experience like this, I have. You'll go out there, you'll have a manager, and the manager will be absolutely terrible, right? They'll be a trash manager. And a lot of times you wonder, right, how can this person be such a bad manager, or how do they even get into management in the first place? And probably a lot of that in normal corporate is favoritism, normal corporate bureaucracy. You hear about that, right? It's not always the most credentialed. It can just be the person that sucks up the most, right, or is liked the most by corporate. Anyways, two types of management that I really want you all to be thinking about since you're in this class. One is obviously the management of others, right? That's what we think about, managing a business, managing other people. But how can you manage other people if you have no idea how to manage yourself, right? And in my experience, a lot of the times when you run into a bad manager, it's because they have no idea how to manage themselves, right? So how do you manage yourself and manage others, right? It needs to work. What is management, whether it's yourself or others? Effective and efficient allocation of resources. Effective, it works. Efficient, it's void of waste. Resources, right? And this kind of brings me full circle to I will never, ever tell you to go out there and not use your resources. If anything, I want you to become super hyper aware of what your resources are, right? Somebody give me one. What's a resource you have? Yeah, I love that. Telephone, right? Telephone, I'll just jump off of that. Your laptop and the internet. Even remember, this is a business, right? You all are spending money on the clothes that you have, and everybody's got a laptop, and everybody's got a phone, and ECU spent nice money on these chairs and this building, and they pay the utilities for the building, and these monitors, and I think I have a microphone hooked up to me, right? All this stuff is money, the inflow, outflow of money. Anyways, I don't want to get too far. Somebody else give me a resource. Other people, yeah, your network. I'll put network and beyond. Here's one, money. Here's another one, time. Which are the two, in my opinion, right? You're spending the two largest things being here for, let's say if you're a traditional student, 4 years, right? In 4 years' time, you're going to spend a lot of money and a lot of time, right? The money, comes and goes, right? You hear that all the time. Now, you obviously prefer it to, if you're in business, you probably prefer it more to come than to go, right? Or at least a larger quantity of money you're making than spending, but your money and time. So that kind of leads me to this question, right? So of resources, there's plenty of stuff, right? Telephone, laptop, internet, network and beyond. So even your second, third, fourth network, there's I can't remember if it's the 4 degrees of separation or the 6 or 7, whatever it is. But what it says is that if you go through your network, right, your 4th, 5th, or 6th network, most of us know somebody famous probably, right? I mean, if you think about how large these networks are. That's why you do a LinkedIn assignment for this class. Because you guys, really, you guys and gals, you really need to be thinking about what your return on investment is here in college, right? You have this huge debate. Everybody's talking about it, right? Should you be going to college? Should you not be going? Could you do it more efficiently, effectively yourself at home? Save money? Should you start, should you start working? I'm here to debate that. What I'm here to ask you is, why are you here? Tell me, why are you here? What's your name? Oliver. Oliver, why are you here, man? Nice to meet you.
I'm here because it's important, and my mom's paying for it.
Mom's paying for it. Exactly. His mom's paying for it. Okay, what did your mom want you to get out of this?
Go to law school.
Go to law school. And you're going to go to law school because why?
because I want to help people that are in a bad spot and they make good money.
Bad spot. And they make good money, right? What are you going to do with the money once you get it? Sorry to put you on the spot, man. You want a family, right? What else? What are you going to do with the family? You're just going to keep them in the house all day? You're going to have a house? You're going to buy a house, right? You're going to have to put the family in a house somewhere, right? Kids got to go to school. Yeah. You want to ever take them on a family vacation? Right? You want a dog? Or a beach? I want a beach house, man. I mean, I'd love a dog at some point. I had a dog for many, many years, more than half of my life. Passed away last summer. I think it'll take me a few years before I'm ready for another one. It's money. You know, all of this stuff costs money. And I know a lot of people sometimes they don't like talking about money, right? But one of it is money. I mean, if you are spending, let's say you're approximately, and this is from, I don't know how much you spend here, I have no idea. I imagine it's cheaper than Barton and Campbell. Let's say you're spending about $10,000 a semester, right? I have no, somebody want to tell me? Just give me a roundabout number. About right? Cool. $10,000 a semester, $20,000 a year, 4 years, we're about $80,000, right? So that tells me, and this is whether you're spending it on education or whether I'm going to go buy real estate or do the stock market or, I probably should have, I teach now, but I own Navi Consultants. This is my company, Navi Consultants LLC. I've been started it February 2019. I've pivoted a bunch of times. There's a word pivot, nothing wrong with that, right? You start one thing, it doesn't work out, either a company, and that's, I think you talk about product life cycle and maybe I'll have time to talk about it, but I have so much stuff I want to talk about today that if I start getting off on things like pivoting or product life cycle, I doubt we'll ever, I'll end the hour in 15 minutes and we won't have the time. If you're spending $10,000 a semester, you need at least $10,000 of value extracted, right? Now, this is part of it, I imagine. You go to class, you show up, maybe the professor's interesting, maybe they're boring, whatever it is. Fact of the matter is you paid for it, right? You paid for it with the hopes of getting some type of data information out of it, right? You really need to be thinking, if I'm spending $10,000 a year, how am I pulling out that $10,000? I'm sorry, I put ROI, I meant info. Right, information and data. Obviously money, right? You want to be out there, you're going to hopefully get a job, right? That's the whole purpose you're here. Right? I know that you're here maybe because you're interested in business or you really want to be a supply chain manager and that's just really what gets you up in the morning. But what is it that is getting you up in the morning, right? Self-management, when we're thinking about managing ourselves in college, you're hopefully making sure you take a bath every morning, right? You brush your teeth. You're doing your laundry every week. You're putting on clothes. You're showing up on time. You're making sure your phone's charged at night. Making sure you go to the caf 3 times a day to eat so you stay hydrated and got your energy. You drink enough water, right? So you stay hydrated. Anyways, I'll never even move on. One big part of that is your network, right? And I'll get back to network. I want to put events and experiences. And if you have the opportunity to travel, I don't care if it's domestically or internationally. Sorry, I put domestic, international travel. I mean, there's so much. It really is up to you if you're spending $10,000 a year a semester to make $10,000 a semester to make sure that you're extracting $10,000 of value every semester. And then that's up to you to determine, right, what is valuable to you. Is it expanding your network? Is it making sure that you're making money right now, right? Get a job right now and start making money. As I had my master, and this is because I was in Wilson at the time. I mean, I had my master's when I got out, my master's. I went back to Wilson. I think I got a job. My first job at BB&T was like $32,000. I think I was bringing home $1,800 a month at that time. This was 2017, right, where things are a lot more expensive. I mean, back then I was paying rent like $700. Now it's what, $1,000, $1,200, something like that. So, anyways, let's see. Yeah, that's kind of my why are you here thing. You know, I really encourage you to think about why you're here in this the ROI. Look, I hear, people used to tell me, that it's not what you know, it's who you know. I hated that saying. I mean, that drove me up the wall because I spent my whole life developing these various skills, thinking that they would, make me money in the future and stuff like that. Now I'd like to believe that it's actually at the crossroads of what you know and who you know. 95% of you all, I mean, you hear about it all the time. I mean, where people, they apply to 100 jobs, they never hear anything back, but the issue is that they never reach out, right? If you're going to apply to a job and you're not going to at least email them or call them, or, I mean, when I applied here, I looked up the boss on Facebook and Google, and I always do this, right? I find out who's in our mutual network. I didn't even have an interview coming here to ECU, which I think is insane, actually. But that's besides the point. Fact of the matter is, I've actually never had an interview except the time that I was at BB&T. And even BB&T, I'll never forget, they, not that I've never had an interview, I'm sorry, that's the wrong way to say that. I'll call it the path of least resistance, right? And so I'll never forget, I'm at BB&T, my first corporate job. I've got my second interview, and the boss's boss walks in. He picks up my resume, he picks up my reference sheet. And I knew that there was, somebody was already giving me a reference. I had his name on the reference sheet. I'll never forget, the boss's boss circles the guy's name. He said, "This is my neighbor. He's already vouched for you." He balled up, which I don't think he should have done this, but he balled up my resume and he threw it in the trash. And he's like, "You've got the job." And I mean, if I could just tell you how many times that has happened. That's how I got my job at Campbell and the community college in Barton and ECU right here, right? Just through your network. This is a big part of your return on investment. And not only your current circles, obviously everybody's got a circle. I see you two sitting back there. You look like you're already friends. Everybody's already probably got their circle, right? Maybe you've got a second circle or a third circle. But I highly encourage you to really, that's why you do the LinkedIn, right? At the very least, you'll add each other, right? I mean, this is a part of your return on investment, knowing who each other are, keeping up with each other. You're probably not doing anything right now. That's fine. Not many undergraduate people are. But if you give it 5 to 10 years, you'll be really surprised. You'll have no idea. I doubt any of my friends ever thought that I would be a professor, right? I mean, we all went to college together. Everybody gets into a little bit of debauchery in college. And then, right, but everybody grows up. Some people become a real estate agent, nurses, professors. I know a couple elementary teachers. So let me move on from that. If at any point anybody's got a comment or a question or anything, let me know, because that's kind of part of it, right? I mean, if you have a question, 9 times out of 10, somebody else has got a question. So what do I plan to teach you guys in these 3 sessions besides this kind of rant about ROI and your network? And I'm telling you, 90% of you all will get your first job through your network, right? There's no shame in talking to your parents about where they work. Or maybe you've grown up and you've met some friends of your parents who also work in corporate or somewhere. These are the people that are going to, maybe it's your buddy, right? Maybe you've gone home with your buddy over spring break and you've met their parents. Maybe they're paying, and you really like where your buddy lives and you want to relocate there. This is where your first job is going to come from. And once, right, an object in motion stays in motion. Once you get that first job through your network, this really is the path of least resistance. Right? Let me put it into this perspective. If you've got 5 people hanging out, right, and you all have known each other for 2 years and you've been hanging out all the time, every week, once a week for 2 years, and Navi, right, just Navi, you have no idea who I am. I'm going to come into your circle unannounced, right? I just kind of come, I tap on your shoulder, I say, "What's up, man? I really like your group of guys, and you guys are hanging out all the time. Can I start hanging out with you guys? I just want to come here and start hanging out with you 5 times a week, every week." Right? You're going to probably be a little hesitant. You have no idea who I am. You got no clue. You ask your boys, "Hey, does anybody know who that guy is?" No, nobody knows who that is. It's the exact same thing when that's all a job is, right? That's what an organization is. You already have your little organizations within your groups. So then once you get to that point, right, you've been working there 2 years, 3 years already, and you say, "Man, I got this guy named Navi, and I've known him for years. I can really vouch for him. I think he'll be a great addition to our group, and we'll have fun, and he'll mesh right well with the boys," right? That's exactly what it is. So let me move on. What are the type of things that I'm going to talk about or I'd like to teach you I'm not going to write everything on the board because it'll take me forever. Again, these are a couple of things that I mean, hopefully you can take away in the real world. I'm going to give you guys a few websites that, for example, well, I'm going to give you guys a few websites, a few places you can go to get certifications if you're, for example, if you're interested in human resources. I'm going to give you guys some tools and stuff that you can take away, right? Some of them are PDFs, some websites, things like that. And I love investing, right? I talk about investing. I wasn't in retail by choice for 20 years. It's just because I had no, you got to eat, right? You got to make ends meet. And so I started at a super young age. But by the time I was 15, I was over it, right? At 15, 16 years old, I'm like, no way I can do this for another 45-ish years. And you don't have to, right? If you really think about it, when you have a job, whether it's and Mr. Wonderful off Shark Tank says that a job, right, or a salary is the drug they give you to keep you from going out and living out your dreams, right? And so, anyways, I'm a big believer in investing, right? What I want to do is I want to move on and let me see what time it is. Maybe you're having fun. I'm having fun. About 55 minutes. So I'm a big believer in investing, right? If you think about, and this is not to be confused with the term time value of money that you do calculations on in finance class. This is a personal time value of money, right? If I'm going and I'm working, let's say I get paid just for, I don't know. Let's say I'm getting paid $6 an hour, right? Which is terrible, but let's just use it for the $6 an hour. All right. So in this, has anybody ever seen the movie In Time with Justin Timberlake? Someone raise your hand for me. If nobody's seen it, then I'm really going to feel a little old. Yeah, we've got the time on the wrist. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. If we were to have that, right? I mean, obviously none of us know how long we've got our lives, but if you really think about it, we are physically exchanging, right? If you haven't seen the movie In Time, watch it. It's the concept is cool. If you're paying $6 an hour, you're getting about $1 every 10 minutes, right? And so this is exactly the whole point is about increasing this time value of money. I mean, you want to be thinking down to the minute, right? How much am I getting paid every minute? If you watch these videos online, people track how much Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and these guys are making every single second, right? How much is the net worth going up every second? That's the reverse equation, right? Right now, and this is what we teach, right? I mean, we teach you guys to be employees, to go out there, exchange time for currency, and we do it willingly because there's things that we want to have in this world. Right? There's the wrong question. We ask this question all the time. What do you want to do after you get out of school? What do you want to do? Well, man, are you just really excited to get up in the morning and be a lawyer? Maybe some people really love it. There'll be some days where you're going to be tired. Maybe not feel like going into work, or maybe you're going to hate it. You have no idea. But that's not what I'm not trying to push that on you. What do you want to do versus what I want you guys to be thinking about is what do you want to have, right? What you want to do is just to get the money. And this just becomes a means to whatever you want to have, right? I want a beach house. I want a family. I love traveling. I want to keep traveling. I'd love to see all 196s, 200, whatever countries in the world. I eventually will probably, I'm sure, once I do have kids, they'll probably want a dog or something. So I got to pay for that dog. My first dog was expensive, right? 17 years he stayed with me. Spent a lot of money over 17 years with the guy. Let's reel it back a little bit. So I'll talk about some investing if I ever get to it past this part, because I'm a huge believer of it. And technically, I am still talking about these notes just a little bit less in the order that I wanted to go into. Try to stay with me here, right? Has anybody ever heard of trickle-down economics? What they say, a lot of people believe that as corporations get bigger and we make more money and new industries are made and new innovations and new market share, right? Creation of value. New money is created, whether it's through economic activity or, as we know, the money printer, right? A lot of people believe in what we call trickle down. I'm telling you, my next paper that I try to publish is going to be on this concept right here, so I'm still working it out. Trickle down economics. Everybody thinks that as more money is produced at the top, it trickles down into the pockets of the consumer, right? You think you're going to get a discount at the grocery store, things become cheaper, or they're going to raise your pay at work, or your rent's going to go down. I mean, be for real. Your rent's going to go down only in an economic crisis, right? Inflation, man, how am I going to ever talk about anything else? Hold on. Trickle down economics. A lot of people believe that it'll come down from the top into your pockets. But what I'm trying to get, what I want you guys to understand, and this is, you know, anybody can debate me on this or tell me that it's not true. But I mean, it's easy to see, right? It's so easy to see. Hold on, where are we at? So, and let me show you one more M2 money. Wow, I can really hear myself right here. M2 money supply, Fred. This is, man. There's a reason why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And that's because, and this is, you know, I don't mean this in any way or another. I mean, he talks about it in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, so I'm not the first one to say this. In this terminology, the poor are the ones who are saving their money in a savings account, and the rich are the ones that are investing. And why do we say this? And this is where I want you to see where it's, and we can see it, right? You can see it physically right here. So let's just take this. This is past 10 years. The white one is the Bitcoin price. All right, big believer, right? There's not many. I'm a huge, huge, huge believer of the law of supply, demand, and price. And you should think about that before you go out and be a lawyer, my friend. Please tell me your name one more time. Oliver, that's what I thought. I just wanted to say it wrong. So Oliver wants to go out there and be a lawyer, right? Supply, demand, price. If today, if this year, in 2025, 100,000 people are going to graduate as a lawyer, and they're all going to go out there and look for a job, but the demand for lawyers, and these are not actual numbers, I'm just giving an example, is actually 50,000, right? There's only 50,000 open jobs, but we just graduated 100,000 of them, right? We hear about this all the time, doctors and, excuse me. Then the price, not only the amount of money you're going to make, but your negotiating capabilities. What, if you look in Porter's 5 forces, we call the bargaining power, right? Your bargaining power, your negotiating power drops by 50% in this scenario. And so I highly encourage you all, when you're thinking about what you want to do, whatever your means is, for whatever your end is, whatever you want to have in this world, I want you to be paying attention to, for example, human resources, right? And if I ever get to it, I'm going to talk about it in a second, right? We're living in an age where human resources has become significantly more important, right? Back in the day, a little history of managing others, back in the day, who cares, right? If you had death in the family, if your car had a blown tire, if you're sick, right? No, I pay you to come to work. I need you to come to work. I mean, this was kind of this kind of assembly line more back in the manufacturer industrial time. But we need workers to come to work, right? There's no exception. I pay you. And so now we're living in an age where people actually, right? Maybe if you had a blown tire, maybe your boss will pay for it. Maybe the boss will send an Uber. Maybe your boss will come pick you up, right? Maybe if you're sick, they give you you got sick days, right? Maybe you get a paid sick day. These days, what I'm trying to encourage you here before I get back into Bitcoin, because Bitcoin follows the law of supply, demand, and price, in my opinion, better than, and now don't be wrong, I'm big into real estate, I'm big into stocks, I love all types of investments, right? But you can build more homes, boom, supply goes up. I can find more, maybe you strike more gold or silver, boom, supply goes up. Equities, all the time, even me, my companies, I think I've got 100,000 shares on the books. At any point, I can increase it to 1 million shares or 2 million shares or heck, 10 million shares. Who's going to stop me, right? I just amend my operating agreement. Companies do it all the time where they issue more shares, right? They increase the supply of it, effectively decreasing the price, right? Supply goes up, demand stays the same, price still goes down. So anyways, put Bitcoin to the side. I just said that because obviously that's the white line. Your pink line is money supply, and then of course year-over-year growth rate. You don't got to pay attention to that. But take a look at this money supply for the past 10 years, right? Just the pink line. And then take a look at the stock market. This is the S&P 500. I should probably put it like right side by side, but here's back here. What I'm trying to get at is that trickle-down economics works, but the money, and just think about it as a cup, right? Think about it's a cup, and there's cups beside each other. Once the cup starts to overflow, it starts to trickle into these other cups. The cups are not our pockets. The cups are assets, right? Real estate and equities, commodities. Bitcoin, right? We're close to a high. I think it's at 110 or something right now, but it broke a 124,500, right? I remember talking about Bitcoin in 2018 in my classes. Mentioning, back then I can't really talk about it or I'm going to lose my job, right? Now, if anything, you're kind of crazy to not, if you still think that it's a crazy thing to be looking at, you're kind of crazy because, BlackRock and Vanguard and all these large players and smaller players. And anyways, I promise I do not have Bitcoin written down on my piece of paper here. So what I'm trying to show you here, though, is that and that leads me to my next thing, as we continue to print money, which it will almost be impossible to ever stop, assets will continue to go up, right? That's why houses will just keep getting more expensive. Stocks will keep getting more expensive. Bitcoin will keep getting more expensive. Commodities will keep getting more expensive because that's what inflation is, right? We're printing a lot of money. So anyways, hold on, let me come back a little bit. Let me talk to you about this. This is the USDebtClock. There is a formula that we talk about in economics, however you want to call it. Y equals C plus I plus G plus X minus M, right? Y is GDP, which for better or for worse is our measurement, our metric of a country's success. The largest form of a company, in my opinion, is a country, as we can see, right? Here's your country's books right here. You don't have to just look at the United States. You can look at all these other countries, right? Competing against each other with the GDP as a metric and debt as a metric. And there's one more. You can even get because remember, it's the largest form of a company, for us at least, is the country. But then it gets gets down to the state level, right? North Carolina gets down to the city level. Wilson, Greenville. Oh, it's not popping up. Let me try to refresh it. Let's come back to this formula. Y is GDP, C is consumption, I is investment, whether it's local investment or foreign direct investment. G is government spending. And then X is exports. M is imports. I want you to think about COVID 2020, and I have it on my paper. I want to talk a little bit about history of management, right? So, of course, history of business. Okay, now we're living in an age where you've got to care about your employees. That's why if you're thinking about jobs in the form of law of supply, demand, and price, just a couple off the top of my head. Cybersecurity, data analyst, somebody in human resource management, sales is big right now. Do not go out and be a real estate agent right now, right? Everybody's becoming a real estate agent. Huge supply of realtors right now. Demand is about the same, I would say. If anything, it's dropped since your 20, before you had when you had low interest rates. Let's think about COVID for a second. COVID 2020. I want to take a look at what happened there in COVID right here. So here's 2020, right? So let me talk about this for a second. Everywhere that's gray right here, this is your recession of some way, shape, or form. And then this blue line is money supply, right? I just want you to just notice this side right here. I mean, look at this increase in 2020. We can see it right here, right? At the time, people were told to stay home. People stopped consuming. What else happened during that time? Unemployment, unprecedented, right? You got right here, March 28th, 2012. This was the housing bubble. That's COVID, the March 2020 right there. Huge, 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 huge. So many people that I never thought would lose their jobs, I saw lose their job, right? This is even more important. You know, so many people put their financial security, look, as my students, I just want you all to know, there's one thing that I take so serious, and that is that nobody is responsible for your financial future and your financial security except you, right? You're the number one person, your management of ourselves, right? That's a big part of it, just like our health, our relationships, our job. This financial security, if you're just going to put the whole thing into the hands of your company and something like this ever happens, it's going to suck, right? People are told to lose their jobs, told to stay home. Consumption drops. Every country's dealing with COVID pandemic, so they all stop investing in each other, right? We're going to just focus at home. Foreign direct investment drops. Exports, imports get halted because, right, China, 25% of global trade flows through China. Almost everybody in the world's largest trade partner is China. I lived in China for a year. Actually, just got back from China. I was there over the summer. Very interesting. Has anybody ever been to China, like Shanghai or Beijing or anything of the nature? Interesting place. So exports and imports are halted as well, right? At that time, the government had no choice. That was one of the, I've been paying attention to the US debt clock since 2011 or 2012. And that was my first time I ever saw GDP, right, where is GDP? It's around here. Right here. GDP at that time, right, there's a $7 trillion discrepancy. At that time, before COVID, we only had a couple trillion, right? That was my first time in my life, since 2011, where I saw U.S. national debt going up and GDP going down, right? We literally had it where normally it's supposed to go up, right, in tandem. It's okay if we're in a lot of debt, as long as the economic activity is okay, is there to sustain that, right? And so then, I'll give them that. I'll give them that during the COVID time, they kind of had not much of a choice. And you could see that in the stock market. I mean, now I don't personally believe that they should have done this, but let's take a look at it. Where are we at? 2020 here. Right here, this is COVID, your COVID crash, which I lived through that, right? I lost, back in that time, I had only amassed $10,000, my entire net worth and savings, and I think I lost 8,000 of it in that crash. That was such a crazy time, and it's so insane that it's only 5 years ago. But anyways, this would have gone down even further if the government hadn't come in, started printing money, and what they used some of that money for, right, government spending. Because what are bonds? Does anybody know what bonds are, which is just another investment vehicle? Bonds are debt, right? Let's say this is such a simple, silly example, but let's say I want to build this chair, and I need $100 to build this chair. And bonds are normally in quantities of 10, right? So I'm going to sell 10 set of 10 bonds at $10 a piece to raise my $100, right? But I'm going to give you 4% on your money, right? So maybe if you're getting like, I don't know, terrible math, but I'll give you back $14, right? I'll give every bondholder, if you just wait to the maturity date, so let's say in a year from now, I'll give you 4% on it, right? $14. At the time, airlines and cruise lines, they all had to stop moving, right? So they've got all these employees. Of course, we had the PPP loans where if you used it to keep your people on the books, then you didn't have to pay it back, right, as long as you can record and keep it. And at that time, I was working in retail. I mean, I had 5 or 6 people working under me. So we did have the PPP loan. I remember having to write it out of this separate checkbook and then and I haven't been in retail for, I don't know, 3.5 years or something like that. But I did do it forever, like 18 years or 20 years or something too much. Anyways, sorry, not bonds, the PPP loans. So what ended up happening for these companies that, for example, cruise lines, airlines and stuff, they're going under massive amounts of debt. What they did is they created what we call junk bonds, right? Anybody can create a bond. There's levels of bonds, and they're all rated, AAA is your best. You're going to get your money back a little bit lower than B, maybe into your C or Ds. It's like, maybe you'll get your money back, maybe not. But if you get your money back, the interest is 10% versus if I were to go through the U.S. government right now and buy any of their debt, which everybody can here, right? I would only get maybe about 4% on my money, right? So anyways, what companies did is they created a bunch of junk bonds. The government came in, they printed a bunch of money. They bought those bonds, right? They bought those bonds, and this kind of helped put what I call a backstop on this crash that we were having in March 2020. Now, if I had it my way, because obviously I'm on the consumer side. Of course, I want to be rich and not have to constantly exchange time for money, just like everybody. But I'll tell you that we wouldn't have. I guess keep out from my article because there's a direct correlation with this, right? The money supply as well as the markets, real estate prices, and inflation, right? And there's only one person that gets hurt. It's your regular consumer that's going out every single day. But that's why it's so important that you invest because, and I'm not saying just go out and buy some random stock of a company you know nothing about. Do something proven, right? Like I'm kind of when I first started investing, I'm coming in buying penny stocks I know nothing about. Sometimes I'd make money, sometimes I'd lose money. Now I'm at the point in my life where if I spend money, I've got to know for a fact that it's coming back with more, right? Anyways. So I've talked about what is management, two types, right? Self-management, management of others. Your book talks about the levels of management. I'm just going to write it down and then I'll move on. Remember, you got your board of directors. These are the people that are above your top management, So people wonder, right? Jeff Bezos stepped down from being the CEO of Amazon. It's now something Casey or Casey something. But Jeff remains the chairman of the board. The chairman of the board is still the boss of the CEO. Your top management, this is your CEO or CFO or COO or CIO or CMO. This is your top one, right? Your marketing officer, operations officer, impact officer, financial officer, executive officer. You can also put up there your president, your vice president. For example, think about this institution, right? You've got a president, and you've got your vice president of academic affairs. Maybe you've got a vice president of sports or a vice president of finance, or I don't know how the system here works. Then you've got your middle management. If you're thinking about this in terms of a plant, think about like a plant supervisor running the entire plant. You've got your first line managers. This is what would be like your direct supervisor. And then under that, we have the assembly. This is, again, kind of in industrial terms, but your assembly line, right? I like to call them your grunt workers, right? This is your cashier. This is the person that's, at the Amazon warehouse making sure the pack or all the stuff is getting put, just on the assembly line, right? Just kind of moving it along. That's your levels of managers. Again, your book will talk about that. There is, how much time do I have? 10:43, see it flies. There is, does anybody here invest at all? Like, does anybody, you have, somebody tell me, what brokerage do you use or what do you invest in? I take it, does anybody, let me ask this question. Does anybody invest in anything other than stocks? Right, okay, and I'm not asking crypto unless it's Bitcoin, right? I know I've played with some of the others, but and I'm not going to talk. I don't want to talk about crypto right now because right now we're just talking about more traditional stuff, right? A Roth IRA. If you don't have a Roth IRA, you should have a Roth IRA. Let's start now, right? Reason I ask that is because let's see, I need an eraser. Now we are seeing this trend or this movement or a shift I say back in the day, it's still, some companies are still like this, what we call shareholder-oriented versus, stakeholder. A shareholder is somebody that directly owns stock. Let's put this up. A shareholder, oh, excuse me. If you create a Robinhood account right now and you buy one share of McDonald's, you are a shareholder of McDonald's, right? You hold a share of McDonald's. McDonald's is a publicly traded company, which means that anybody can open up a brokerage, get up there, and purchase a share of it. Anybody can become an owner of McDonald's, right? Because it's a publicly traded company. So that's just your public versus a private company, right? Navi Consultants is private. If you want to come be an investor and own a share, either you can come ask me and I can say yes or no, or most of the time you'll go out and you'll actually look, right? You'll be looking for money or you'll be raising money. So for the longest time, and again, some companies still do this, they have got a focus on shareholder value, even if it's at the expense of the employees, the community, versus the customer, vendors versus stakeholder, right? Stakeholder is everybody that's got a stake in the company, employees, vendors, partners, the community, right? This is where, so a word or something that we see often, and you'll see this in your chapter, is corporate social responsibility. This is the responsibility of Coca-Cola, for example, who, for every liter of Coke, 2 liters of water is used, right? They go to these kind of third world countries. They buy land at super cheap, and not in every country, but Coke does have a history of doing this, and Coke is not the only one, right? Nestle is another one. But they go to these third world countries, they buy super cheap land. They've done all the surveying and research, and so there's 2 types of water, right? You've got our underground water and the aquifers. You've got your water that can be replenished underground, and then you've got this kind of old time water that once it's run out, it's run out. And so, anyways, Coca-Cola will go to these third world countries sometimes, buy cheap land, and they'll be pulling out water, right? Sucking out the water from the ground to use it. Water goes into everything that you see before you, right? Into the manufacturing process. Into the manufacturing process of all these chairs and your clothes, my water bottle and this expo marker and these screens, there's water. We call it the invisible water industry, right? The invisible water market. Anyways, corporate social responsibility. So this is the responsibility of companies like Coke, because what ends up happening, Coke is coming in, they're sucking up a bunch of water to use for their manufacturing, but they end up taking too much, and then what the neighbor, right, even if the neighbor's a mile away or 2 miles away, what they notice, and depending on the country, depending on where you are, obviously you know how to dig a well, right? You dig a well until you hit what we call the water table. And so what these people in the other countries were starting to realize was, hey, I used to be able to dig just a couple of meters down, and I'd be hitting the water table. And now I'm having to dig a lot, right? The hole just keeps getting bigger and bigger and gets harder and harder to reach water, right? And so I doubt they're doing it in every country, but obviously the countries that say, hey, that's not cool, Coke has claimed that they have put back in just as much water as they've pulled out at this point, and that's part of their corporate social responsibility. So just a word to keep in mind. I imagine as time goes on, it'll just become more focused on stakeholders, right? More focused on, there's entire funds out there that will not invest in your company unless you are sustainable, right? You're a sustainable company, you're ethical, right, in terms of CSR, and we'll move on. Yeah, we'll move on. You have a lot of laws that protect us, or I say you, but I'll say we have a lot of laws that protect us as consumers, as employees. And so I just want to mention those for a second. 2 of those laws, one is Sarbanes-Oxley Act 2002. So Sarbanes-Oxley, I met a girl once. She was a SOX auditor. She's the only person I've ever met in my life that's a SOX auditor. They're a Sarbanes-Oxley auditor. They go and they're basically auditing and checking for any financial discrepancies in people's books. And I met her, and she works on 6 to 8 month contracts, and each time gets paid like $150,000 to $200,000. Absolutely insane. Sarbanes-Oxley, 2002. If you've never heard of Enron, take a look into Enron. Ask your parents, especially your grandparents, about Enron. Back then, again, a lot of people put, and this is another instance where people put their faith, financial security, into the hands of others, right? You go, you get a job, they provide you with the 401k. You can just put it on autopilot. Do you want to invest in equities? Or if you say, I have no idea anything about this, then whatever the company is that handles your 401k, because it's not the school is just outsourcing it to somebody else. They'll do whatever it is with your money, right? They're going to invest it for you, and hopefully it goes up, and you can, right, then you hit 55 or 60 or something, and you have to pay the taxes at that point in time, right? This pre-tax dollar is going to your 401k. You pay the tax later when it's time to retire. Roth IRA is the opposite. You pay it's post-tax. I've already paid taxes, put it in my Roth IRA. But when I hit 55 or 60 or whatever, I can pull out the proceeds. Right? There's a lot of people that buy Bitcoin or real estate, or, I mean, of course, stocks. I mean, it's easy to buy stocks in your Roth IRA. There's making money tax-free. It's a lot of investing stuff. Enron. Back then, a lot of people are, right, you've got your teachers and your nurses and your postmen and all these people, your normal American workers who've got all this money going into the 401k, right? Maxing out the 401k, they've got financial advisors, everybody at that time is telling people, invest in Enron. Why? Because Enron every year is coming out, we're growing, I think we're growing like 50% year over year for multiple years in a row. And then finally it came out that they were lying about their books, right? This is pre-Sarbanes-Oxley Act. So they're lying about their books. It's not true. They're not making all this money. And was anybody trading GameStop and AMC and these stocks back when it first happened in December of 2020? What a time, guys, what a time. Anyways, one of the biggest issues back then was that, and of course, it's all supply, demand, price, right? And sorry, it's a little bit of jargon. You'll have to, if you want to learn about it, you have to look it up on your own. But there was the majority of the shares of GameStop were shorted, so there was a low supply of GameStop stocks. Actually, there was virtually none at the time to be shorted anymore, even though they were still shorting them. Demand, right, goes through the roof. Boom, it causes what we call a short squeeze, and the price shoots up. What they did at that time was they cut off the buy button, right? Robinhood and all these other ones, they completely cut off the demand side of the equation, which of course is why GameStop, from the height of it, guys. I had a guy in August 2020, he messaged me. He's a good buddy of mine. We were investing at the time. I used to be really heavy into stocks. Now it's just I'm more heavy into real estate now, but back then, and any stocks I do now is retirement. But he messaged me middle of August in 2020, and he said, man, we're buying GameStop. GameStop's $4. It's going to go to $15. And at the time, I was just messing with like $2 stocks. My words exactly, too rich for my blood is what I told him. And in 6 months, it went from $4 to $500, right? To put in perspective, behind every $4,000 investment, you would have had $500,000 at the peak of it all. But I made plenty of money back then too, so it's okay. But that's like kind of crazy. Not sustainable in terms of, sometimes it's better to just kind of go like you're walking upstairs versus a bunch of money at one point, because, right, that's what happens to people from the lottery, right? We see that happen with professional athletes all the time too, right? Large quantities of money at a quick time. They don't know what to do with it. They don't have the financial security. They blow it all, right? See it all the time. Anyways, they cut the demand side. That's why the price started dropping. What Enron did at that time, so They knew that, hey, we're about to be found out. Our stock's going to start crashing. And so what they did was they sold all the top management, right? The top managers, CFO, CEO, all these guys. They dumped all their stock, walked away with millions and millions and millions of dollars. And the stock price at the time was like $55, $50. It starts to tank, just start going, just down. Everybody, your teachers, your nurses, your normal Americans calling, I want to sell my Enron stock, it's tanking. Enron had shut off the sell button. You couldn't sell. You could still, on the Robinhood thing, now this was still very unethical, what I call manipulation of the markets. It's a whole rabbit hole. But what Enron did is that they would not allow you to sell your stock. And so overnight, what Americans had worked for their entire lives wiped out, right? Completely wiped out. And then I think when it finally opened up to you could sell your stock, the stock had crashed from like $55 to $8 or $6 or something like that. When they took these guys, the top management, to court, and they said, you guys knew what you were doing, X, Y, Z. The CEO was like, I had no idea. Look at the CFO. CFO's like, I got no idea. Look at the COO. COO's like, I got no idea. Look at the CEO. And there was no accountability, right? And for the most part, they got away with it. I think the CEO still had gotten into some trouble later on. I'm not 100% sure on that. But what did come out of it was what we call the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. It created specific rules and guidelines for how people should do their accounting. The entire executive team has to sign off on it. So if any reason now a company is found being unethical or what we call cooking their books, the entire executive team is held responsible, right? Nobody can dodge the accountability. And then, of course, they assigned a jail time and financial punitive charge, consequences to it as well. But those Americans, I'm telling you, go if your parents grew up and were working around 2000, 2002, especially the 90s, especially if they were working at a big job or something and they had a 401k, ask them if they remember Enron and how much money did they lose because of Enron. A lot of people, I know a lot of people who in 2008, 2011 had to completely start over, right? Enron was the exact same thing, people completely having to start over with their life's work. I can't stress the importance of managing your money and being financially literate and things of that nature. So let me move on. We're almost out of time here. So, excuse me. This is your, obviously, Sarbanes-Oxley Act. If you ever want to, things like Sarbanes-Oxley-Act.com, and you can read about it more if you're ever interested to. But again, that's even a position out there, right? How she became a SOX auditor, I have no idea. I didn't ask her. But I do, and before that, I didn't even know that you could be a SOX auditor like that. There's another one that I want to share with you all. 1964, it's called the Civil Rights Act, 1964. It also became amended, I think, in 1996 or 1994. What this did is created what we call the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC.org. If anybody ever were to be discriminated against, right? So if you're a company, you've got 15 or more employees, you've got to abide. And if you go out, go to LinkedIn or Indeed and go apply for a job at a big company, at the very end it says we are an equal employer, equal opportunity employer, and it asks you to put like your race or your background, any disabilities you may have. Maybe it asks you for your religion, whatever it asks you for, right? That is all part of Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, Civil Rights Act, 1964, amended in 96 or something like that. But the Equal Employer Opportunity Commission, or let me just pull it up instead of, right here. What we call the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. If you are ever discriminated against, and this can be at any part of the HR process, right? Whether it's, and there's a whole HR class I teach about this whole thing, like 13 weeks. Not just this, but obviously a bunch of stuff regarding HR. If at any point you're discriminated against, or even you witness discrimination, right? And this applies to all races and all religions and all genders, and this is who you go to, right? It's a one-page, file a complaint. If you are discriminated against based on race, or I'll just put like origin, religion, let's say you're pregnant, let's say, God, there's somewhere. That's not, I didn't have it write down. The LGBTQ community has been included in that. Now, if you are a, let's see, race, origin, religion, pregnancy, obviously gender, disabilities, that can be physical or mental, veterans. I mean, and these are all, they're all different laws, right? When you look at chapter 3, I think in your book, or in your chapter, you should see all these different laws, right? The age is another one. The Age Discrimination in Employment Act, for example, you'll see all these acts. They've all been come together in the responsibility of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Funny enough, I had no idea up until I actually started teaching a human resources class at camp. I had no idea about the EEOC. So now I try my best to move it along to students so you guys can see that as well. Again, it does not matter in what way, shape, or form, or what background, or what it is. The EEOC, as the employer, as the employee, is there for you, right? So I should probably be like a spokesperson for them or something, or run an ad. Okay, how much time do I have? I want to just really quickly, 14 minutes. I'll take maybe about another 5. Maybe, I don't know. I want to talk about globalization for a second because, right, I've given you a little bit of history, right? What protects you a little bit more as an employee because you all are going to go out there, right? Your Sarbanes protects you as an investor, technically, into companies, but also as an employee, right? If you're ever an employee at a company that's doing any unethical behavior, cooking their books, right here. And then Equal Employment Opportunity Commission as well. Just like OSHA, right? Maybe later I'll mention this, but in case I don't, remember, if any reason you're ever working in a facility that's falling apart, or maybe there's mold in the carpets, or mold in the ductwork, or it's just unsafe, right? You don't feel it's occupational safety, and either your health or your safety is at risk at your workplace, call OSHA, right? Just a one-pager, file a complaint. They're required by law to come out there and see what's going on. So I just want to talk about globalization for a second. We see a lot of stuff about tariffs right now, right? I just want everybody to realize that this is not the first time. And no, I'm not talking about 2016 as 2018. I'm talking about 1938, prior to World War II, what we call the Smoot-Hawley Act of 1938. What happened was that the United States wanted Americans to buy American-made goods. Sounds good in theory. I want everybody to remember this one thing. For better or for worse, right? There's one country out there, I can't think of the name, or I can't remember what country it is, but and I think maybe it's Bhutan, but they measure their success by the happiness index, right? They measure there's a whole report out there called the Happiness Report. It's published every year, right? Corruption index. There's so many different indexes, reports, things like that. Right? C plus I plus G plus whatever. So Smoot-Hawley, we'll just put Smoot, 1938. We raised tariffs on all of our trade partners, right? We want to encourage Americans, stay away from the other goods, buy American-made goods, raise tariffs. The other countries got upset, so they also raised tariffs. What that does, right? So before I get there, okay, at that time, there was a few reasons, many reasons, but one of the reasons why, people say that World War II was started, a lot of countries back then were experiencing a recession, right? Germany was experiencing a heavy recession at that time. Right after World War II, GATT was made, General Agreements on Tariffs and Trade. The whole point is everybody please, no tariffs, free trade, right? Free flow of goods. Now it's the World Trade Organization underneath that is General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. If you want more information, obviously just go to WTO.org, wherever I put it, right there. World Trade Organization, it's just WTO.org. You're welcome to check it out. What I want to mention is that it's been a long time that we are in a globally integrated world, right? When you put up tariffs against everybody, not saying that it's, and we've got some good bargaining power as the United States, so I'm not saying it's for better or for worse. All I know, no one's got a crystal ball, right? And one of my favorite sayings is, only time will tell. And one of my old professors used to always, my investments professor, used to always say, no one's got a crystal ball into the future. So, but what does happen with tariffs, right? Think all the countries in the world start to put tariffs on each other with their trade partners. You completely destroy this part of the equation, right? Your exports and imports begin to become so disrupted that, right? It's impossible. And then also, there's actually a couple of layers into it, right? Countries maybe start to get upset. Investment could decrease. And then consumption, products that consumers would normally buy, either they're avoiding because of the high prices because of the tariffs, or they're looking for alternatives, maybe not able to find them. Because you have to think, we wouldn't have all of these modern conveniences if it was not for international trade. There are just some things that we cannot make here, or we cannot grow here. Same thing with all the other countries in the world. There's just stuff that they can't make, they can't grow. They don't have the resources, the raw materials for it. And so that brings us to today. We are in a more internationally integrated world than we've ever been in. Of course, again, you can see that under USDebtClock. You've got and this is really kind of what I want to just really leave you all with. I have Porter's 5 Forces and Pestle here too. Take a look at it on your own. Obviously, we do some consulting as well, and I've got good buddies that work at big consulting firms. We use Pestle, we use the 4 Ps, use SWOT, use Porter's 5 Forces. It's just like, have you ever been to an eye doctor? You know, the phoropter is like better or worse, because we try to see what glasses you have. That's exactly what these tools are that we provide you all. They're just kind of like, they're lenses of viewing businesses a different way. So, I want to leave you all with 2 things, right? Again, managing others, managing yourself. You need to understand what are people, right? We're very fortunate to be here in the United States of America. I mean, you are starting with, right, from birth, you are starting with the international business, the international language in the world, right? If you can speak English, you're going to be fine anywhere in the world that you go. And also, of course, the U.S. dollar. Sorry if people start packing up and start to get a little distracted. Long story short, here in the United States, we have our air, food, water, clothing, right? From most of us, from the beginning, are probably sheltered, and we have water and food. If we didn't have access to clean water, or you didn't know where your food was going to come from, or you didn't have a place to go home to tonight, would you be sitting here right now? Like, would you be in class, or would you be able to go out and hang out with your buddies, or go to that club or the sport or whatever it is? Probably not, right? So the majority of us here in the United States are starting off on number 2, safety, right? Personal security, employment, financial security, access to resources, good health, and have property, right? Maybe some of our own space. Then we move up, love and belonging, friendship, intimacy, family, sense of connection, esteem. This is where you start getting your promotion, your raises. Maybe you finally buy yourself a new car because it looks good, and all your neighbors have got a good car, and so car is until we cannot hang out here in this classroom, and my car is working for Uber, driving itself and making me money while I'm hanging out in here teaching. It's a bad investment, right? So I see it all the time. Students get out of here, and the first thing they want to do when they get a new job is buy a new car, and your car works. Guys, I'm a multi-millionaire. I'm still driving my 2011 Toyota Camry, right? Don't have to work, don't have to do anything, really. I just like to do it. I like to talk about this kind of stuff. And more than anything, when I was in your shoes, nobody was teaching me how to make money or even where to look, and nobody could tell me anything. So anyways, this is how when you're looking at this is a really good way to see not only when you're managing other people, but also managing yourself. And there's one more thing that I want to show you all just to add to your tools. I have no idea if I have put this in your, I have no idea if I've put this in your modules or not, but this is called Geert Hofstede's cultural comparison model. This is just another tool when it comes to managing yourself, but also managing other people and working with different cultures. So Geert Hofstede was an anthropologist. What he did was, he was an anthropologist. What he did is he traveled to a lot of different countries. He found these pillars, and he determined that, okay, we can compare countries based on these pillars. So let me take the United States, and let me pick, anybody here from a different country? What country? South Africa. Thank you, sir. Let me see. It should be, yeah, South Africa is right here. So I'm going to just pick on, I'm not picking on any country, right? This is the U.S. versus South Africa right here. Very kind of close, right? So if it's below 50, you're on the, so for example, power distance. In both countries, if I want to go and talk to my boss's boss's boss, he's probably got an open door policy, right? Versus maybe if I pull up to, in power distance, we talk back to our parents here. You know, in India, my parents are from India. They would never. I mean, obviously they wouldn't talk back to theirs. I mean, I'm born and raised here, so I mean, but let me take out South Africa. Let me just put, I guess, India from a perspective, right? Look at the difference in power distance. One is high in power distance. One is below 50. Individualism, U.S. very high in individualism, right? I'm thinking about, I'm thinking about what I want to do after this, or what I want to eat, or I'm thinking about kind of what I want in life, right? I want a beach house, and I want my immediate family, and I'm going to go do these things. It may, I mean, of course, my parents will be close by. I'm close with my sisters. But what about my cousins, my first, second, third cousins, and all my aunts and uncles, and all my, right? If I go to India now, I see them all, yes. But when I'm thinking about my daily actions, I'm not really keeping them in mind like that, right? Individualism, we also saw it in the United States with masks, right? And not just the United States. I'm just showing it to you because we're one of the highest individualistic countries there is. But we saw it with masks, right? You have a lot of countries that were more what we call, on the other side is collective, right? Collectivism. They would all be wearing masks because they know that, hey, I got to protect the person beside me. But here it was like, no, I don't want to wear a mask. I'm not going to wear a mask, right? I mean, this is in our culture. The other one, I'll talk about it later. Uncertainty avoidance. Let me pick a different country so I can run through it. This is a great tool. I mean, I've published a paper based on this tool, and I use it in consulting all the time because for better or for worse, and I mean, the trend, right? The trend and what is going on, it will be more diverse than ever before in terms of the workplace. Whether you're running a business, you're working in a business, no matter what, when you're dealing, and if you're consulting a business, right? And consultants make a lot of money, whether you're consulting a business. These are some of the tools that we look at, right? Okay, why are your employees like this? Why can't you get a handle on your employee? That's a big one that we work on is people don't know how to manage other people. And I encourage you all, start with managing yourself. Same aspects apply when it comes to managing others. So I hope you had a good time. I had fun. So thank you all so much for your time and attention. And I'll see you October the 2nd. That time I'll teach you how to start a business. What's up?
I'm Connor.
I'm not.
I was like 5 minutes late. Did y'all do an attendance quiz?
Not an attendance quiz, just the where people check in on the thing. Check-in should still be open if you want to check in. Yeah, I've seen you there the whole time. What's up? Hey, man.
I would shake your hand, but I'm sick.
No worries.
I'll shake your hand next week.
Yeah. We won't meet again until the 2nd.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. But
Yeah.
My name is Isaiah. I just want to put a name to a face.
Yeah. No, that's how you do it. Yeah.
I wanted to get your number just in case I had any business questions related.
Yeah. I just erased it, man. Here, I'll put it back up in case somebody asks for it. And if you just look at the announcements, I almost put the number under the announcement almost all the time.
Gotcha.
I put it under there.
All right, appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Nice to meet you. What's up?
Do you have any times we could come in person if we want to talk about something related to the course materials?
Yeah, absolutely. Just if you send me an email, so I put it on the announcement yesterday. If you send me an email.
Yeah, I saw the email.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
But at any, and this semester, technically, we're fully online. Normally I do this class once a week every semester.
Yeah, because I saw it was hybrid primarily.
Web, yeah. That's why I was just like, well, I know most people sign up for it for the online experience. So I was like, I think 3 is about enough in-person sessions.
Yeah, I like the in-person sessions. Like, I feel like I get more, like,
Yeah.
the stakes more.
Absolutely. I feel the exact